Okay, so our next panel is all about our working coast and careers that will help you to make a difference in saving coastal Louisiana. So I'm going to take a moment to introduce our panelists. So first is Connor Gilbert. Connor is the Sportsman Outreach and Policy Specialist at Vanishing Paradise. Connor immersed himself in conservation efforts when he was in college, becoming president of LSU's American Fisheries Society subchapter, where he connected with fellow students dedicated to protecting the waterways they loved. That hands-on experience paved the way for a career that has taken him deep into Louisiana's wetlands, working on the front lines of restoration. His journey led him to the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries Foundation, where he discovered the power of outreach and public engagement. It was here that he saw firsthand how connecting with sportsmen and conservationists could drive real change. Connor recognized that successful conservation isn't just about science, it's about people. Now, as part of the Vanishing Paradise team, Connor is on a mission to rally the outdoors community around coastal restoration. Connor, thank you for being here today. Our next panelist is Dr. Addie Adams. Dr. Adams is from Terrebonne Parish, and she earned both her bachelor's and master's degrees here at Nicholls State University with a research focus in the innate immunology of estuarine fishes. She earned her PhD at LSU Health Science Center, working on vaccine development, followed by a postdoctoral fellowship studying infant immune responses to respiratory, and I'm not going to say that word right, syncytial virus. Her chemistry, you can tell I'm not a scientist. Her chemistry instruction is informed by several years of federally funded biomedical research. She represents the Nicholls legacy of excellence in teaching and scientific mentorship to foster STEM in the Bayou region by being an advocate for coastal restoration from a scientific standpoint. Thank you, Abby, for being here. Our next panelist is Haley Gamble. Haley represents Louisiana Sea Grant as a marine extension agent for Terrebonne and Lafourche parishes. Haley began her association with Louisiana Sea Grant in 2020 as a Sea Grant supported graduate student studying white spot syndrome in cultured crawfish. She also participated in Sea Grant's graduate research scholars programs, which helped provide her with familiarity of other coastal research projects and challenges. As a marine extension agent, Haley continues with collaborations she established during her time as a graduate student at LSU and creates new partnerships within Terrebonne and Lafourche parishes. Thank you, Haley. Next is Ms. Ashley Lambiot. You've already heard a lot about what Ashley does through Ren Haas's keynote this morning. Ashley works for BidNet, and where she has been since 2022. She began there after earning her Master of Science degree from Nicholls State University. As the native plant nursery coordinator, she works side by side with the habitat restoration coordinator to grow and maintain native plants to fulfill various restoration planting contracts. Additionally, she oversees the day-to-day operations of the nursery facilities at the Nicholls Farm and is responsible for managing the farm student workers, one of whom you'll hear about during our next panel. Ashley's interests include restoration ecology, effects of inundation on vegetation, and education and outreach about Louisiana's unique habitat. Thank you for being here, Ashley. And last, but certainly not least, is Christy Landry. Christy is the director of Bayou STEM, where she works to increase STEM education and opportunities in Lafourche, Terrebonne, and Assumption parishes by facilitating and fostering communication between industry, education, and community partners to develop a strong network of STEM partnerships. She holds a bachelor's in biology from Nicholls and a master's in biology from Southeastern. Her research interests have included the impacts of hypoxia and low oxygen on fish habitats. Before starting at Bayou STEM, Christy was here with us for about a decade as an assistant professor of biology here at Nicholls. And last, but certainly not least, our panel moderator. A native of Colorado Springs, Colorado, which I did not know, by the way, and a resident of Lockport. Our parish president of Lafourche, Archie Chasson, graduated from Nicholls State University with a bachelor's degree in management. Before becoming our Lafourche Parish President, Archie served as the Public Works Director for the City of Thibodaux, the Parish Administrator for Lafourche Parish, and the Administrator for the Lafourche Parish Government Office of Coastal Zone Management. He was the lead on Lafourche's restoration efforts following the Deepwater Horizon incident in 2009. Archie is a coastal leader on the local, state, and national level, where he works with other parishes and counties facing coastal issues. So this panel, I'm going to turn over to Archie, and this should give you some insight into all the different ways that careers in many different fields can ultimately lead to helping restore and preserve our Louisiana coast. Archie, they're all yours.
Thank you, Ms. Ruger. Appreciate it. So let me clarify a couple of things. One, yes, I was born in Colorado. And if you wonder how a kid from Colorado wound up number one as the parish president, who was a guy in the coastal sector. I am a fifth generation Lafourche. My father was a helicopter pilot in the Army. And while I was conceived here, I was birthed up there. So I breathed cold air first, but salt air the rest of my life. So, but yeah, as we were mentioned in the intro, again, you wonder how a parish president gets involved in the coastal sector, right? After graduating from Nicholls, I worked in the project engineering world in coastal use permitting, and beginning to understand what the wetlands and the coastal laws was for our community. And then as I transitioned over into public service, working for the parish in the early years of my career, started out in the coastal office. I was right after the BP oil spill, all the cleanup efforts were done. We had just gotten into the restoration part of it. Within Senator Lang, who worked on things like the Restore Act, and I'm sure a lot of these people know about funding and how we fund a lot of these projects, have throughout the day, and how we continue to do that. So that was kind of the birth of that preface, and then just working my way around, and then a few years ago, was doing enough to run for public office, and won the election, and then I've been here ever since. So, like, it's a great honor for me to always come back to Nicholls as an alum, and represent this great university, but then to talk about things like coastal restoration for the younger folks in the group who are looking at potential career paths, and then for maybe some more seasoned people in the group who maybe have to move or develop because of coastal land loss, and things that we deal with post that, like insurance rates and stuff like that, and what that means for the future of our community, what that means for the future for you guys, and how are you going to continue to work, live, and play here as you transition through high school and college life, and hopefully stay here and raise your kids. So it's a great segue to talk about career paths. And while a guy who came through Nicholls State University got a management degree, wound up floating around the progression on marsh grass for parts of his career. One guy was about beer money. Let's be perfectly clear about that. You need a little bit of that as you get older in life. But part of it was again about public service, giving back to our community, and how do we protect it as we go forward. So, Connor, we're going to go down the line. We'll start with you since you're the closest to the mic. Tell us, although we heard a little bit about your background, tell us a little bit more in depth about what you do, a bit about your education path, whether the line initially was supposed to work, or if it didn't, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Like, Nikki said, I'm the Vanishing Paradise of National Wildlife Program for National Wildlife Federation. I'm the Sportsman and Outreach Policy Specialist. We do a lot of work, outreach, education, sportsman, outdoorsman, really anybody interested in learning about coastal Louisiana and the restoration projects that happen here. We do a lot of work with trying to just inform stakeholders, other community members, and many more people just about what's going on in their community and in the backyard. We do a lot of work focused on with Delta Unlimited, also with Mississippi River Delta Coalition. We want to restore the Mississippi River. One of the main things that I graduated in was fisheries and aquaculture from LSU in 2018. I first started working in multiple state organizations or state departments, and then always volunteered and did multiple fun activities with nonprofits, environmental nonprofits, and just trying to make myself a present in the opportunities that I can. And that's kind of how I always found myself coming back to coastal restoration because, I was a fisheries guy, I graduated in fisheries. I was electroshocking 2 or 3 times a week, having fish come up, but got to learn a lot about habitat, and definitely threw me back to, being from Georgia, actually, not a lot of saltwater fishing where I am, so when I got down here, I was able to do a lot of saltwater fishing and kind of gave me more of that coastal area, coastal activity, and knowing all the stuff that I know about fish habitats and the need for them definitely gave me a bigger perspective that coastal Louisiana is going to be a hard thing to bring back, but it needs to. So.
Good. All right, as you know, I'm here to represent the chemistry department. So I feel like I'm amongst a lot of strict biologists, and I guess I would say that I'm a biologist and a chemist. I'm a biochemist. I'm one of two strict biochemists in the chemistry department, although I would say anyone who is in the field of molecular biology is also really a biochemist. And my goal here is to teach the next generation of scientists and influence them and staying in our community and helping to preserve this environment. Whether that's the health of our people or the health of our coast or our local fauna or flora, that's all biochemistry, because all of the variety in life and any problem on a macro level has often a molecular answer. So that's what I'm trying to push forward with my career. And in our research and in my lab, we are looking at the health of a crustacean, the fiddler crab and tulalip. We're looking at a specific protein in that crab as a marker for health of the environment. It's a stress marker. So we're trying to develop a diagnostic as an indicator of the health and the safety of the coast, a very general health marker. So my path wasn't always straight and narrow. As you know, I did my undergrad and my master's here in marine and environmental biology. I worked with Dr. Rogers Nathaniel. I was always interested in biology, and always interested in the coast. I grew up in Houma. As you know, I went to Terrebonne High, maybe like many people sitting in here. I came to Nichols thinking I either wanted to be a biologist, a chemist, or a cartoon animator. So I found my way. I liked microbiology, whether that was clinical or environmental. Those, the same concepts apply. Whenever you're studying molecular, those tools that you use, they work whether you're studying a disease in the environment or a disease in a human being. Because if you're studying macromolecules like protein in a tree or a protein in a person or a protein in a crab, you're still going to use the same tools. So it's a really versatile career to go into. So after I finished my bachelor's here, worked on a master's, I looked at the innate immune system in catfishes. Had a great time doing that, so much that I wanted to keep doing research and studying immunity. I did vaccine research, so probably it's a pretty versatile group up here. So I didn't have a straight and narrow path to studying the effects of pollutants in crustaceans. So I studied vaccines and how a specific vaccine worked. And actually, I used a mouse model, but the vaccine was a clinical vaccine. So I went from environmental to a little more clinical, wanted to understand some complex immune system responses. And then in my postdoc, I worked on RSV, as you heard, but that lab looked at a lot of different respiratory viral infections. And one of the things they were working on is how pollutants like combustion particulates affect the severity of respiratory viral infections. So very interesting. So started to bridge my way back from clinical to environmental, because I always wanted to come back home to home. I love being on the coast. We have a lot of big questions to answer in our own backyard, and I always intended to come back, especially after when I was in New Orleans and in Baton Rouge, it just wasn't the same as being here. I had a friend of mine, every time I would miss Houma, she said, Houma will always be there, Abby, so you can go back. And then during my postdoc, Houma was, a resilient community that was decimated. So I intended to come back to use my knowledge that I gained in the topics of immunology, those techniques, and metabolic protein skills for, protecting and restoring and evaluating the health of our coast. So it's mostly the quality assessment side that I'm working on now and influencing our next generation. So it was not a straight and narrow path, but whenever you study biochem, there are many applications. So, right?
think I'll echo that a little bit. I think a lot of us don't have a straight and narrow path, and we think we want to do something, and we get sucked into another realm that's really cool, or we find people that are just great. So again, I'm Haley Gamble. I work for Louisiana Sea Grant. So if you haven't been to my table, it's the Turtle Table. You can come visit me after. But Louisiana Sea Grant is a federal program under NOAA. That's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So we are housed at LSU. However, it's not Louisiana State University Sea Grant, it's Louisiana Sea Grant. So I get to work with all different types of universities, all different organizations across the coast. I am primarily based in the Bayou region here in Terrebonne, so I live, my husband and I are both residents now of Thibodeau, and I serve this area. So my job is extension. That means I'm a neutral party and I'm sharing information. So I'm not a liaison, but I'm kind of like this middleman. So I get to learn about all of the science and policy regulations that are happening at local government levels, state and federal levels, and bring that back to the communities that I serve. But the transfer of information goes the other way too. I learn about the challenges that are facing the communities and the sectors that I work with in the Bayou region, and I try to bring that back to the universities for research, to different policymakers and different organizations at different levels, so that we can form a network of partnerships to address different challenges. So for me, I did not want to be a people person. I wanted to be a biologist. I loved biology. I loved animals. So my accent is not down the bayou. If you didn't know, I grew up in rural North Carolina. I grew up on a dairy farm. My dad said you can be anything you want except a farmer. So I became a fish biologist. So hey, it's not that secret, but it's really fun. So I went to NC State University. That's in Raleigh, North Carolina. I got a bachelor's in fisheries biology. I was actually working on invertebrates in the Bahamas. So looking at density dependence of fish on reefs and how big congregates of fish work together on reefs to feed and survive. Somehow I got a job at LSU. So I did a master's degree at LSU working on crawfish. I'd never seen a crawfish. We didn't call them crawfish. They were little teeny things. You sure as heck didn't eat them. But now I do. I did a master's on crawfish aquaculture, looking at, like the tutor said, white spot syndrome virus in aquaculture crawfish. And so I really brought my roots back to extension. I was from a farm. I was in 4-H, FFA, all of those things. But I had to channel those extension roots because really fisheries management, wildlife management is people management. When we're managing ecosystems and we're thinking about ecosystem services, we're really thinking about the people that live there. And so my work in graduate school was really focused on interacting with the farmers, creating this network to solve a problem that was really heavily rooted in microbiology and ecosystem ecology. So now I got to continue doing extension work, and now I get to work in this area. People always ask me, why did you move to South Louisiana? And I said, well, have you been there? It's pretty awesome. And so the people here are awesome. I have had grown a love for the coast that has been something that's unexpected, but I'm really excited to be here and thankful to be able to talk to you all today.
Hey everyone, I'm stretching out my throat. I don't want to unplug it. Hey, as Nick had said, my name is Ashley Lambiot, and I work for BitNet. I am the native plant nursery coordinator, which means I get to spend a lot of time out in the sun, which is great. But I'm not from here either. I am from Alabama, from Birmingham, and you know the theme here's kind of been no straight and narrow path. Mine might have started out a little more narrow. I knew in high school I was lucky enough to know I wanted to do marine biology. So I had that focus going into it. And you know, a lot of my peers were still trying to figure out what focus they wanted. So I kind of had that leg up. I knew it was marine biology, so I was able to look at colleges along the coast. And that's what brought me to Nichols, along with a connection with my father with Cajun dancing, of all things. So the culture was already really pulling at me to get me here, and just immediately fell in love with Nichols and the beauty of our estuaries and the things that are here. So I did my undergraduate here, and I did a little bit of research. I was involved with different clubs like Biology Society, Tri Beta,
getting out in the environment and doing some of those volunteer opportunities, kind of figuring out what interests I had. Marine biology is a huge topic. There's a lot of different specialties that you can get into. I even worked with Dr. Gary LaFleur doing some undergrad research with apple snails, which was fascinating. And that kind of told me I wanted to get somewhere into science and this niche of research and working on the coast. But then when it was time to graduate, I had no idea what next step I wanted to take. So I took an opportunity of the gap year, which I highly recommend, especially if there's nothing there that you really latch onto, to take some time to think about it and explore some more. Because really that's what college is about, is exploring your interests and finding your next step. So I took that gap year and I traveled around and I left Louisiana for a while and ended up doing some tutoring and teaching of science and things at a learning center. And finally, I felt the call again, that research was beckoning. And there was no place like Nichols. I looked around at a couple different colleges and realized I really wanted to get back to the estuary. That's kind of what was calling out to me over and over. Even though I left and I was all over the world doing different things, that estuary had really made a special place in my heart. So I came back and I worked with Dr. Jonathan Willis. And what was very interesting is I moved from working on animals to plants. This was something I followed my own personal passion of just loving plants. And I took that and I ran with it. I did some research looking at inundation effects of plants and vegetation. That was out at the Nichols farm. And then I was lucky enough that once I graduated, there was this amazing opportunity at Midnet that opened up for a native plant nursery coordinator. Like, of all things, that just seemed way too great. So of course I jumped on that, and it's also at the Nichols farm. So I've kind of continued to have this great relationship with Nichols and specifically the Nichols farm. So that's where I'm at today, is I'm out there almost every single day of the week. And what I do in my job sometimes involves drawing out hundreds of thousands of plants for coastal restoration. So we always hear about these opportunities to get out and do things on the coast, to save the coast. And a lot of times that involves the planting aspect. Those plants have to come from somewhere. So a healthy amount of them come right from our own backyard at Nichols, at the Nichols farm. And so we work mainly with the state on those projects, those large restoration projects, providing those plants. But there's also a lot of smaller niche things that we do as well, providing plants to the parish, or we do an annual plant giveaway and things like that to get some of these native plants back into our own backyards and improve habitat in some of those big ways and small ways. And then there's always a great opportunity. If you have not been to the Nichols farm, I highly recommend it. It is a beautiful sanctuary right in the middle of Thibodeau. And we get school groups out for education events to teach them about plants, to get their hands dirty, to show them a little bit about what's so wonderful about the area that they live in, what's so unique about it. And so that's where I'm at today, is working, doing that and enjoying every day outside. I think that's something that, throughout my tutoring and helping of students trying to find their path, that I like to emphasize is you don't have to be inside all the time. There are jobs you can find where you're working outside. You can be boots on the ground. You can be as involved as you want to be in any of these restoration jobs, volunteer events. It's really a large spectrum that you get to choose where you want to fall on it. And I'm looking forward to discussing that today.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Christy Lake. I actually am from Fairpark, Louisiana, which is right up in northern part of Assumption Parish. So when I was very young, I remember going on beach vacations with my parents. And for us, going to a beach was actually going to Biloxi. I don't think I ever set foot on Grand Isle or Louisiana Gulf Coast until I was actually in college, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. We're only a couple of hours drive away. So for me, I was a student here at Nichols, growing up where I grew up, rural area. The jobs that we do about when you go to college, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a nurse, you're going to be a teacher. Never ever thought I'd go into university education, be a teacher here. I was focused on anatomy, physiology, and microbiology. So that kind of stuff goes back to my dad was a turtle farmer. It's kind of weird. Turtle farm is one of those weird little niches in Louisiana. Like there's 3 places in the whole state that have turtle farms. We're one of them. And so I learned all about, you know, get salmonella for turtles and all that other fun stuff. Don't lick the turtles. Bad idea. But when I was in school over here, I worked with Dr. Gary LaFleur and Dr. Marilyn Kilton, and I was exposed to the Gulf Coast through an internship that I had at Longmont. So if you're familiar with Longmont, it's at the end of Cove Street, definitely at the end of the road. Big X-shaped building. It's pretty fun to go out there. Their parking lot blows a lot, so it's concerning. But it's a really cool place to be, and so I was able to visit marshes in that space to see the actual impact over the years of coastal land loss in that space. And I was able to go out to the barrier islands and actually see some of the restoration projects that have already been started at that time and where they're at now. So it's pretty amazing to kind of see that over the years. So after I graduated from Nichols, I went on to Southeastern, where I studied hypoxia in bullnose, killifish. And that was a really cool experience too, because it actually let me see more of the Gulf Coast. So a lot of our research is actually done in Alabama and Florida, but very similar ecosystems. It was a lot like what we have here in Louisiana, lots of marsh grass, muddy. You sink when you step in the mud. And it was just an all-around cool experience for me to be able to tie that experience that I had here in Louisiana to what my future career was going to be, which I still didn't know. I was getting over about now. So I taught for 12 years over here at Nichols, and then I switched over to the job that I have right now. So the director of STEM, which is one of the 9 regional STEM centers in the state of Louisiana. We're all part of the STEM program. So being down here and being responsible for STEM education and assumption of tribal heritage, I like to adopt Dr. Cruz's catchphrase that we are the closest to the coast. Okay? So it's really a good idea for us to be involved with coastal restoration work and coastal education as much as possible while we're in this space. So what I like to try to do in my role is make sure that we have curriculum and programming that ties our students, mainly K-12 students, but also community college and university, to the coast. So we try to develop summer camps that bring students out to the restoration sites, so you get your hands dirty, you get your feet wet, you play in the sunshine, accidentally drink salt water, all those fun things. And so part of my job, I'm not in the field all the time. I don't do as much research as I used to do, but it's still a very rewarding thing because I get to connect people with those resources that they need. I get to tell you guys all about jobs that they have out there, aside from being a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, or a teacher. Okay, and that's an important thing because those jobs sometimes kind of fill up real quick. And we also need other people to do the important work that helps to maintain our coastal areas and make sure that we preserve our culture and our lifestyles for the years to come.
Thanks, Christy. So keep in mind, because we're going to work our way back across the table with our next question. But it's really fascinating to hear how you found your passion, right? Whether it was mom or dad, or you had a calling in life that figure out where you are, and then kind of how your journey got to where you are today. It's fascinating because we all come from a very background, right? I'll blow you mind for a second. My first major in college was cardiopulmonary care science, right? I'm a respiratory therapist. The first time I had to end up being a kid, I'm like, yeah, not for me, right? So I switched over to the business side, which I've never run a hospital or nursing home or anything that I thought I was going to do. I wanted to do. So keep that in mind, guys. When you think about career paths, just because you landed, as a teacher or a doctor or whatever, right? It doesn't mean that you have to do that the rest of your life. There's always a path around that. So, I guess, Christy, start with you. When you think about the jobs in the coastal restoration field, everybody starts to think about the science course, right? But as the STEM person in the room, what's the other background that people can use that might lead them into a job in the coastal field that will drag them back across the whole time?
All right, so depending on what part of a coastal restoration project you want to work on, it's kind of going to determine what education you need. So there are 3 main parts of coastal res. There's planning, there's construction, and then there's the management of that site after all that construction stuff. So if you're interested in being on that front end where we do all the planning, engineering, I have a background in engineering, so that's going to be STEM, that's going to be science background. But if you feel like you have more of that creative side, that artistic side, drafting, it's STEM tangent, still involves a lot of art, computer animated design, or computer-assisted design and drawing. It's a really cool place to be. It's really cool to kind of see the tools that are used in those sorts of things. As far as the construction phase, construction management is a really important place to be. So if you have a business degree, understanding just how budgeting and planning, strategic planning works, that's going to help you out with that part too. And then anybody that has trade skills. So sometimes you need somebody that can operate a crane. Sometimes you need somebody that knows how to weld. Sometimes you need electricians to develop parts and pieces. We have a partner over with Danos. Danos has a construction our facility where they print 3D print on concrete Cajun coral, which goes into some of our restoration sites and access to habitat. So being able to operate those types of machines, okay, doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a college degree. You're gonna have to get some certification along the way and learn how to use those things. But there's a lot of opportunities straight out of high school that you can get working in these types of jobs. The last phase is that management phase. Pretty much anything in or any type of educational background gets you a job that's related to that. So there's a lot of data collection. So you can be the person that drives an airboat to go look at the different sites to do some field visualization. They use drones to do flyovers to identify, what's happening in those areas where we can't really get a good visual perspective of it, sitting in a boat or staring at it. There are opportunities for actually managing the data that gets collected. So if you're really into computer science and coding and stuff like that, building databases and looking at the math behind all that stuff, math is not that scary. I love math, it's already math. But yeah, there's plenty of opportunities out there to be involved in coastal restoration. You can be a plant nursery manager. Yeah, there's all kinds of opportunities for you out there.
Big fat ditto. That was an extremely comprehensive answer. That was wonderful. That makes my job really easy following up on it. I'd also like to emphasize the tremendous work that has to be done means there's a tremendous amount of boots that need to be on the ground too to do a lot of this work. Just personally, we did some plantings down at Fort Bouchon this last year, and we did almost 19,000 plants. That's a lot of plants. And, to go out there and to grow the plants is one thing. To go out and do all the elevation data and figure out where we're going to plant and what we're going to do. That, of course, that takes a little bit of a science background. But to ride on our boat to go out there and to have a great day in the sun, planting plants in the ground, that really doesn't. If that's just something you're passionate about, just manual labor in and of itself is a huge component to get a lot of this work done. And that's something you can volunteer for, or that some people hire positions for, just to go out and to have hands. That is incredibly valuable. To have interested parties with a little bit of passion and who don't mind getting dirty and doing work. But no, I think the one thing they didn't hit on is communications. Yeah, communications as well. This is a brilliant example of how you don't need a scientific background to be involved with restoration. The people who are putting this on, mass communications class, that's not necessarily a scientific background. That's a huge desire and a lot of wanting to ask questions and get answers and find topics that are interesting to the public and convey information. At its basis, that's one of the best ways that people can get involved with coastal restoration is to convey information and to talk about issues. And I'll pass it on down the line.
Well, Ashley took mine. I was going to highlight this awesome event, but it's really true. A lot of us with a background in a specific science or biology, we're trained as scientists and we're trained in math, we love math and science. But sometimes, like I said, ecosystem management is people management. You have to be able to talk to people. I still love coding. I still love looking at statistics. But how do I tell that to a fisherman? How do I tell that to someone who's lived on the coast and is seeing the impacts in a very different way? And so we need communicators. We need real well-rounded individuals who can do these things. And I'm really glad too that Christy mentioned trade jobs. I was talking to a student at Nichols earlier, and he was really also interested in welding. And I said, well, we need welders to build boats. So even in the coastal restoration space, we need welders to work on these different projects.
But once you've done projects and you look at the whole scope of things, like my job tends to do, these communities need these jobs. So all of the jobs that we talk about, I talked to nutrition agents. We talked about why nutrition is important. We need to talk to people about seafood. Why is our coast so important? What are the aspects of our culture and our coast that we're trying to preserve? And there's really a lot of different industries that go into that, and I think they've been really, really well said so far. Sorry to give you nothing.
What's left? So maybe I could give a few examples. Building off of communications, that was the topic for the last two panelists. One of my best friends actually has master's and PhD degrees in marsh sciences and scientific communications. So that's a really important skill, to be able to communicate what's happening on a scientific level and to change that jargon and convey it into a way that the community can understand, people that are not scientists, so that we can get everybody on board with whatever restoration projects are happening to help to translate the data and what we learn as scientists. So communications, underline, that's definitely significant. Also, one of my best friends in the room, I'm not going to point at her or anything, but when we did our master's in marine and environmental biology together, it's all oriented towards saving, protecting, restoring the coast. All of our thesis projects, were designed around that. But what happens is, whenever you're trying to solve a problem on an environmental scale, maybe a molecular scale, there's going to be some litigation issues. If we're trying to solve the problem with science, but you run into some legalities. So what my friend did after she got a master's in science, she got a law degree. So that's something that you can do. And so then you have these two backgrounds that come together, so you can, influence that litigation or the legality for a better outcome, so that you don't have to worry, or you can work with that red tape. You can understand it, you can work with it. So that's very important. That person went on to do maritime law with the Navy, and so on and so forth. I'll tell you what they're doing now, but I'm going to just have to point to the person. But anyway, so there are many different paths you can take if you want to be involved with the coast. If you have a versatile background, if you have a broad spectrum of knowledge, I think that helps even more. So you can even do vaccine science and then come back and try to study the health of our environment. It still applies. Okay, if there's anything left.
You got it.
I do have something to add, but it is to reiterate. Engineering and communications are massive. I love science, I love biology, but I do not love math. If you love those things, then you should do engineering. Engineering are some of the biggest decision makers in coastal restoration, as well as other large-scale complex projects. Math does a lot. It goes a long way. Back to communications, it's a big reason, again, why we're all here, why we're all talking about coastal restoration, why we're all good communicators about coastal restoration. That gives us the opportunity, that gives us the opportunity to be able to convey those messages about coastal restoration in active ways, so that way, young kids all the way to, old adults are able to understand the message that we're talking about for coastal restoration. So.
Yeah. Christy told everybody something.
Yeah.
But I got it. That's why we started on I'll point a little bit, but Christy touched on the operations side of it too, right? The engineers are important, the communicators are important, but the guys in the machines that are building the coastal projects, I'm gonna pick up this Jasmine in the front row who's grandparents and great grandparents on the marine transportation company. People need to move the planes around, you move rock, you move these bars, right? So whether you're a tugboat captain or equipment operator, right? It all goes. You didn't think I realized you were. I love you. All right, anyway, I'm trying to start this one with you, so I think it kind of fits you guys best, and we'll see what everybody else can pitch in. But we have some high schoolers and probably some college folks in the room, as they're thinking about their career paths, and they're thinking about can they do now if Cedar Bend that fights down, whether it's helping dock in the lab for the Crawfish or Connor from Prevention Paradise? What can they do now to really start to get involved? Maybe it doesn't find your passion, it's a good career passion, but what's the opportunity now to our young group?
You did say to start.
Yeah, you're the other nine.
Yeah, so that's a really great question, because as we just kind of covered, there's a lot of different ways that you could get involved. And truly, you know, for your own happiness, right? You want to do something you love. You really have to listen to yourself as you do things. And if you like them, what about it do you like? Did you like going out and volunteering and doing this one activity? What point did you like being outside? Did you like the nitty gritty? Did you like that you got to go inside and code something? Those are all important things to think about when you find these opportunities to go out and experience. So there's a lot of things to go out and experience. And sometimes they seem really simple fun, and sometimes it feels like there's nothing. You know, I want to get out and do something, and there's nothing. There's a couple different resources you can look for. You can find groups like Sea Grant, STEM, all of these different clubs at Nichols, FitNet. There might not be a giant advertisement out at the moment when you're trying to find something. But if you walk into someone's office and just say, hey, I'm interested, is there anything coming up? We're going to know things on the calendar that we can tell you about. Yeah, CRCL, Restore or Retreat, some other names. If you guys have not heard those names, write them down, because they are resources to explore. All the tabling events that are going on, there's flyers, there's handouts, there's information on what you can do, either long-term or just real short to see if you're interested. But there's different events, everything from cleanups, going out and helping picking up trash, to plantings, to different education seminars, and things like this. The fact that you guys are at a summit like this is incredibly encouraging, because this is a great place where you can start to learn some of that information. And so using those tools are going to be to your advantage to figure out how you want to get involved and what aspect you want to get involved in. I don't want to steal everything from you. No, I think that was great. Really like taking charge of the opportunities that are in front of you and volunteering where you can. Like Ashley said, sometimes it's hard. I don't know what's going on. How am I going to find these things? And that goes for the general public as well. And coming to events like this. And I think my biggest word of advice is asking questions, especially at the age you guys are. I had great questions today at my table. Even the silliest question. I never thought that I would end up here. I like cows. But then I was like, well, fish aren't so bad. Well, then I could get on a shrimp boat. It's really stinky on a shrimp boat. But ask questions. Ask the silliest questions. Because then that's how you really find, like Ashley said, what your interest is. And it's okay if your interest doesn't align with somebody else. There's always commonalities between those. And you can expand on what another person enjoys and find the commonalities between those. And so I think putting yourself out there and being open and asking those questions is a really good start to finding what your passion is. And then I'd just like to add too, talking to those people in the room is great. Sometimes you can't see them, you might be a little bit shy. We are in the day and age of social media. Almost everybody has a social media account that you can follow, an Instagram, Facebook, even a LinkedIn, an X account. And on a lot of those platforms, people are pushing out their advertisements. Hey, there's a planting, there's a festival, there's X, Y, and Z event, to let the public know, or hey, we need help. So if it's something, maybe you're not comfortable yet going up and talking to somebody, you can always scan and look for those things on social media as well and find those different opportunities.
Yeah, again, I would say volunteering is a huge impact to seeing more about what you're interested in. There are many organizations, if you like saltwater fishing, CCA, Coastal Conservation Association. If you like duck hunting, Ducks Unlimited, another nonprofit organization that takes volunteers. And every one of these organizations are looking for active participants and people to speak their voice and wanting to communicate more about the problems that they have. That's just a name too that I know off the top of my head. There are a lot of local community organizations as well that do a lot. That name too, CRCL, Restore, Retreat, Vanishing Paradise also does volunteer opportunities. We work with a lot of other nonprofits and try to just get more people involved. And that's really what it is finding a hobby that you enjoy and then going on that stuff.
All right, so, go ahead.
Like, what was the original question about, like, volunteering or involvement?
Just anything they do now to get involved, if they have an income to get involved in coastal.
If you're interested in coastal chemistry, we do have, you know, they didn't tell me that I had to recruit anyone, but I want to recruit you. So we do have a chemistry field day. You can come and tour our labs and look at our equipment. We'll try to share that information with the local high schools. I'll have an experiment ready for you guys in the biochemistry lab, right? So that's one thing. We'll try to get that out to you guys.
So I know Nikki would hold a few minutes for some audience questions, so we'll kind of wrap up kind of the prepared question for this one, I guess. Abby, we'll start with you. If there was one piece of advice that you could give the younger group in the room today, or just in general, whoever's going to watch this after we get done, about working in the coastal field of Louisiana, what would it be?
Right. So if you're interested in working on the coast, and you're thinking right now, well, it's a vanishing coastline, so that might seem like a big problem. But where you have a problem is where you have jobs, right? Any kind of job that you have, it's to prevent a problem or to fix a problem. So, you know, you might think, no, I want to maybe do marine biology, but I was thinking of going to this other beautiful place or that place because it seems cool. Well, the passion is where you have an issue that needs to be resolved. So you find that passion, think about what you care about, what you want to fix. And, you know, I can't see how, for me, it's hard to see, you know, behind your own backyard, this beautiful place where we are right now. So those are, you know, my words of advice. You know, that it is sad that the reason we have job opportunities here is because we have a problem. But a problem is what breeds passion. So that's my advice. And also when it comes to what field you want to move into to restore, protect the coast, don't have your blinders on. You know, just feel your way out. Take some opportunities to volunteer now, do some internships. Whenever you start your undergrad, you don't have to stick with the first major that you choose. You know, feel it out for those first couple of years, see what you really enjoy, and head towards that so that you can have a career that you're interested in. That's my advice, because I've changed majors a few times. I wasn't lying when I told you I wanted to be an animator. I was an art major for a year. I told my biochemistry students that, you know, it didn't work out. I'm glad I felt my way around. I went back to biology. I tried all different fields of biology. I like micro. I like the versatility, and I kept going in that direction. I just, you know, stepped around carefully to see what I like, and I love what I do now. So I don't think you can go wrong with that formula.
Do you ever animate your research project?
What's that?
Do you ever animate your research project?
I will. I will. Yeah, we.
Claymation film or something?
That's inspirational. We have animators on campus now, so.
Yeah.
I'll add a short one. Abby said, don't have your blinders on, and I think that's awesome. Adding to that, keep your ears open. Being not native to Louisiana, listening has been so valuable to me. There is so much knowledge around you, so much. And sometimes it's easy to say, oh, that old guy, he's gonna tell me something. Yeah, he will, and he has awesome stories, but they're really applied. And so that's how I've learned a lot. You could go to school forever. I did. It was a lot of school. And I learned a lot, but you can learn a lot. You can always continue to learn if you just listen and keep your ears open.
I'd like to say you can do as much or as little as you want. It's great to get a career in coastal restoration. I assume you guys are here because that's kind of the goal. You're interested in that. But if you find another passion, that's fine. And if you go that way, that's great. But if you still want to be a little involved, that's wonderful. If it's planting a single native plant in your yard, enhancing your own home habitat, like a bird box up. All those little things trickle together and make a big impact. So you can be as involved or as uninvolved as you can be. Everything makes a difference.
So my advice to you is, just with any career path that you choose, but especially cold storage restoration, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You may do something today that you won't see the fruits of your labor for another 10 or 20 years. Just keep that in mind. So perseverance is key, but also you have to kind of love what you do and not be afraid to fail at what you're doing. I say this to everybody all the time, regardless of what you're doing. You can't be afraid to fail. When we mess up, that's when we learn most. So take advantage of those opportunities to learn from mistakes, whether they're intentional or not, and just keep on keeping on.
Yeah, as you've heard through this whole discussion, we've all talked about different paths to how we got to where we are today. And I would say, choose your own path, do what you like to do. And if you end up in coastal restoration, that was awesome, that's where you're supposed to be, but don't forget about coastal restoration if you decide to take some other path, because it is very important to Louisiana, and specifically I see a lot of Southwood Foods high school people, kids here, and, that is your home, and it is disappearing, and it does need to be protected. So, and the one thing my mom always told me before I went to LSU, she said, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, and so I'll say that that's true, so.
All right, we've got time for a couple of questions from the audience. You might have anything? Yes, ma'am.
So with all the schooling that y'all have had to go through in general, and like I said, it's been a lot of schooling, a lot of information that's just been piled on you. What kept you going during that time to finally get to your position that you wanted?
Curiosity. She's curious. You never stop learning and you never stop listening. And you think, I wonder how that works. That's pretty cool. Just a curious nature. Just never stop wondering, what else can I do to be of impact?
And in addition to having that drive, that own internal drive and curiosity, find yourself a support system that's going to help keep you going, because there are some days where you really just want to hang it up and walk out the door and never come back. I used to tell myself if I would walk to the lab some days and have that kind of day, I'll be like, you know what, I'm going to go home, take a nap, come back tomorrow and see what happens. But it really is just about having that internal drive, but also making sure that you have the friends, the family, the network that you need. It could be advisors or mentors even that just help you to get through it. And don't be afraid to talk to those people about what your feelings are, because they've probably been there too and can commiserate and share really good advice and good stories with you about that.
So I was one of those kids who liked Scooby-Doo, like, those kids. Because it's about curiosity and loving to solve problems. Like, you might have this experiment where, you're curious about the answer to this, but the experiment doesn't go right, and you have to solve this problem. That's a scheme that applies in these kind of workforces. So if you like problem solving, if you like to watch the same cartoons as me, then maybe this is for you. It's always wanting to solving a problem of coastal restoration. I mean, we're trying to work on it. We're trying to make it better. It's not like you just solve the problem. It's wanting to keep going. Like there's a mystery there. You don't know what the answer is. You want to see what can happen, what's next. So yeah, that drive pretty much reiterates what everybody said, but I think it is it's innate.
I would say surround yourself with a good support base, foundation, good people. I graduated college in 4 years. I never went back, and I would say the work experiences and the people that I met along the way is kind of how I found where I got to today, and I still am good friends with a lot of people that I worked with before. So it's just keeping those connections and not burning any bridges, really.
There will certainly be very challenging days, sometimes months, sometimes it's a year of classes that are just, you gotta take them, they're required credits, but they're not your interest. And I think that's where your support group comes very, very much it can be. Surrounding yourself by people who are also passionate, whether it's about the same things or different things, just having a group where you can commiserate together and get through it together is just college in and of itself. Schooling in and of itself is critical. Find your people.
You have a question, sir? Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Is there a plan to prioritize or incorporate the local community as a potential workforce in the restoration that we need to happen to save our homes, our community?
Is that a politician question or?
Community member question.
No, that's a fantastic question. I think that really gets back to the root of sometimes it feels like there's nothing you can find to get involved and you have to search for those avenues to find those opportunities. But absolutely, like all of our volunteer work with BitNet, and I think I can speak for us all, that really applies to most any restoration group or club or anything. The community is who we're trying to get in touch with. Because it's when you talk to the community, it's the community who sees the issues every day and has all these ideas. And we want y'all to be a part of experiencing our coast and our estuary and the ways we're trying to fix things and to have that conversation about what do you see? Because you may see something totally different than us and something that we can then take and try to address. So absolutely looking for that relationship with the community for sure.
And so my STEM is actually housed at Fletcher Technical Community College, so I'm gonna take a minute just to plug the program that we have over there. So everybody remembers the Louisville? Yeah, well, we got some pretty phenomenal grant dollars through the Restore Act to support educational programming around helping individuals to become skilled in coastal restoration type jobs. So we have a Coastal 101 program. It's a seminar that you take to learn about how coastal restoration projects get started. And then from there, you can sign up for a slew of industry-based credentialing courses that are available through the college. For probably the next 6 months, we still have funding to support anybody that's interested in taking those courses. Run, hurry up, go sign up. There's a table in the back, not back here, but in the rooms downstairs, where you can talk to Rodney, he's our coordinator for that program, and you can, learn some of that. But yeah, absolutely, the community is going to be the make or break for any of these projects at any point. So we always need volunteer help, volunteer support. We need folks that have that historical knowledge as well as new skill sets to address problems as technology changes and as we learn more about how to do things. So absolutely, community base, having a strong community base is vital to the success of these programs.
I would also say that Nichols is going to be the home of the new Maritime Academy. As we look toward blue water, brown water, pilots, engineers, captains, and think of it as Phil, when you're in his marine business, for years down the line, putting local people to work is a priority, I think, for everybody, right? Whether we're using local engineers to even design and construct some of these projects, whether people like Crosby Dredging, who we try to put local guys on those boats that they're dredging the sediment that we're using to build some of these projects. And partnering with people like Nichols and Fletcher, make sure that we're pushing the workforce out, that we know some of these people are going to need, whether it's Sea Grant or chemists or people at BedNet, to actually manage these projects afterwards. So, you got a question, John? We'll wrap it up again.
I was wondering, whenever like hurricanes come, is it more difficult to restore like the coast, or is it a challenge that y'all are prepared?
Wow.
That's a really good question. Anyone else want to jump
Well, I was
first?
saying, hurricanes are unpredictable, so you never know what happens until it happens. And until that happens, the best thing we can do is just try to come up with a plan to fix or try to enhance what's happening.
Yeah, they're unpredictable for sure, but we do know that they will happen. And as unfortunate as the destruction is afterwards, it's almost the most beautiful time because everybody comes together to solve some of those issues. So that's really when the community is strongest after a disturbance like that. As far as actual restoration, sometimes hurricanes are good for that. they kick up so much sediment and they move some things, they move some fresh water into areas. There's a lot of negative that happens. But hurricanes are a natural part. I'm not trying to say we need more of them by any means. But they're unpredictable. And if you get the right, storm, it can be good for the environment. And if it's one of those real bad, terrible ones, you have all that negative, obviously, from the environmental and personal impact on the community, but there's that beautiful resiliency of this culture that rises up and everyone comes together. So there's really that pro and that con. That was such a thoughtful question. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's a unique case scenario each time, I think. One of the friends that I was talking about earlier, who works in science communications, she spent 7 years of her PhD working on marshal grasses, and her dissertation ended up kind of revolving around the destruction that happened because of hurricanes like Hurricane Laura. So it can make research difficult. So, but there's something to learn from those events each time. Some unique information that's gained, and the data is always changing with these new and powerful storms that we're getting year after year. So I think it's a very active area of research. So there are impacts, and they need to be studied each time, depending on the location, the severity, the angle of the storm, and how it impacts the coast. So good question, and you could probably work on 7 years of dissertation worth of scientific hypotheses. So good question.
Yeah, no more hurricanes, actually. I'll get my hairline. All right, guys, big round of applause for our panelists.
All right, thank you guys so much. So we have one panel left for the day, and that is our Louisiana Restoration Generation Student Panel, which we're very excited about. So the students who are serving on that panel want to start making their way up to the stage. We'll get started in just a minute. All right, everybody, if I can have your attention, if we can just kind of bring the noise level down just a little bit, we're going to start our student panel. So first, I would like to introduce Kay Vacheron. Kay is a mass communication student. He is on the Louisiana's Restoration Generation campaign team, and he is a graduating senior in mass communication. He was born and raised in James and has since moved up the bayou to Laverdale. So Kate is going to be our panel moderator for this panel, and I'm going to turn it over to him and let him introduce the panelists to you. So Kate.
All right, good afternoon, and welcome to the third and final panel of the day of the Louisiana's Restoration Generation Student Panel. Up here alongside of me is Alyssa Walker, Aiden David, Lakota Villiat, and Karaz Johnson. My name is Kate Vacheron, and I am the assistant strategist for this campaign. And on behalf of Louisiana's Restoration Generation, we appreciate everyone who has participated and supported this event today. Before we get started, I wanted to share a little bit about my journey as a student advocate for this cause. As Ms. Boudreaux said, I am from LaFouche Parish in the small community of James. It is situated about 35 minutes south of Nichols, surrounded by marshlands and swamp. Due to this, I take coastal restoration to heart as land loss directly affects my family, my culture, and my history. Even though we are about to hear from other students, some of which who live even closer to the coast than I did, my hometown is still impacted by open bodies of water that flood from major storms. When we think of coastal land loss, we automatically shift our minds to Grand Isle, Coconut Creek, and every southern community that resides by saltwater. I'm here to tell you that coastal issues and erosion still affect me in my current home, which sits 10 minutes north of Tippah, which is nearly 90 miles from the Grand Isle shoreline. I've devoted my college experience to learning how we as a community and a state can come together and shed light on potential ways to restore Louisiana. My knowledge continues to grow and diversify on this topic, and this has led me to compose an undergraduate honors thesis on how sediment diversions are portrayed in the mass media. I may not be a scientist, but what I learned from this entire process is that there are hundreds of ways that we can advance the coast. Biology, genetics, chemistry, and environmental sciences all have important roles in researching and developing new techniques to save Louisiana, but not all of us are scientists. On this panel, we have students from several different backgrounds to showcase that you can have knowledge in any field and still make a difference. You can have experience and still make a difference. You can simply just care about your hometown and still make a difference. With this being said, we'll begin our panel discussion and hear from student representatives of Nichols states. Before we get into the questions, let's introduce each one of them. So first off, we have Alyssa Walker. Attends Nichols State University, where she is pursuing a bachelor's degree in mass communication. She specializes in public relations with a marketing minor. She plans to attend grad school to get a master's degree. And over the course of her Nichols career, Alyssa has served as the student program and association president and traditional event director. She's a part of Delta Zeta sorority, honor societies, and was the president of Phi Eta Honor Society. Currently, she serves as the account executive for the Louisiana's Restoration Generation campaign, and is part of the select few who are traveling to present their research in the union in the next upcoming weeks. She also recently has been inducted to the Nichols Hall of Fame. All right, next we have is Hayden David. Hayden is currently a student at Nichols and is pursuing a degree in marine biology. On top of his academic credibility, Hayden is a student worker on the Nichols Farm through FitNet. Next is Karaz Johnson. He is also a student at Nichols as well as a student athlete on the football team. He is a biology student and has composed research which has sparked his interest in coastal restoration. And then lastly, on the end is Lakota Billiot. He's a native of coastal Louisiana. He is currently in his third year at Nichols under the sociology program. In his time on campus, he has worked to revitalize the Nichols Association of American Indian College Students and currently serves as the president for Nichols' chapter. All right, so let's get these questions started. The first one is a very simple one, and it goes for all of you. Why? Why are you passionate about coastal Louisiana? And any of y'all can start.
If I really had to, I guess I'll go first. For me, coastal Louisiana is important because it's a place that I grew up in. Really, from a young age, it was instilled in me that nature is something that you should respect, and it's something that should always be there for you. And I think as I've grown older, I've gained a hell of a lot of respect for the place that we live in. Without it, what would we be? We're from South Louisiana. We all have a funny little accent, and we all share the same culture. So without the land that we live on, we wouldn't have it.
I mean, my why is pretty simple. I'm from cut off Louisiana. I graduated from South Louisiana, like y'all are eventually going to. And I've just seen over just my life how the coast has disappeared. When I first started these classes, I was telling my teacher, Miss Nikki, how I grew up going Grandal, playing on the beach, and it's like Grandal is slowly going away. I'm sure most of you know that. We've seen it firsthand, specifically off because I was so close. And when I hit it, my parents were in their house for like a year and a half. My grandma still isn't in her house. She was living on a camper outside her house because there's no land to stop the hurricane. And I heard about someone asked about hurricanes earlier. So my why is our coast is disappearing and we don't have a land to live on and we're not here. So that's pretty clincher in my life.
Sorry. How y'all doing? I'm really just piggyback off of what they said. I'm originally born and raised in New Orleans. I have lived in Knoxville, Memphis, and Tallahassee, Florida. With being raised in New Orleans, my mom's from a little past Belle Chase, a little town called Arlington. We usually visit places like Erie, Venice, and Port Selma, and I always had fun going out there, just playing in the marsh. But usually when I would move away and I would come back to visit, I would just see less and less land, and it would be more of us talking about the things we see or we used to see than what we actually see. I always wanted the next generation to be able to see that stuff with their own eyes instead of just in textbooks. So that's what really got me interested in coastal restoration. I just want everybody to be able to see
it. Growing up native, I was painfully aware that the disappearing of the coast also meant the disappearance of my culture. And if the coast left, then everything that we did culturally, which was relying on the plants on the coast and just so much on just trapping and fishing and shrimping and crabbing and just living off of the coast, if the land was gone, then how would we continue to maintain our cultural identities? And I mean, that is my point.
All right. So now, tell us a little bit about what have you guys done so far in your college career. This could be inside, outside the classroom, anything to Louisiana's coastal crisis, anything related to coastal Louisiana.
I mean, my shirt is pretty self-explanatory. I had to help put this on. So as one of the things I've been doing, since last fall, I've been pretty involved with it with Miss Nikki's class. I'm going opportunity to travel to Europe and present to students at Newcastle about what we're doing here, and the United Nations will be live streaming it. So just, I think, me personally, what I've been talking about, I've been bugging every single person that will listen to me. Coastal restoration and Louisiana's restoration generation. One of my friends called me the coastal girl the other day, and that's fine. But I just really think it's important. So I just talk about it. I reposting. I follow people that talk about the coast. I'm just doing it all. I talk about it all the time. So if you ever see me, I can always talk.
For me, what I've done during my college career really starts with my job. As a senior in high school, I got my job with Bitnet out at the English Farm. And I worked there for 2.5 years. And when I go into work, basically it's a really fun but difficult job because you're working outside a lot. We're growing plants, native plants. You've heard Ashley Lambiot in the previous panel talk about it a little bit. But we do grow native Louisiana species for ridgeline restoration projects. And we even get to go out and plant those plants that we grow. Last summer was a great opportunity. We got to go out actually to Grand Isle and plant for about 3 days. And it was a really great way to support our coast because it's physical. We got concrete plants in the ground. So, it's nice to see your work being put out in a physical meaning than, just showing up to work and raising these plants and, you hand them off to other people who have bids out for your plants and they go plant them in places. But when you get to physically go and plant your work, it makes you really confident in your ability to make change. Also, we have a lot of community volunteer events that I do participate in, some of which are the Biofish cleanup and the Elmhurst Island cleanups. I'm not sure if they've spoken about them a whole lot today, but they are great opportunities to go out and, it's the same way, like for me, especially going out and planting, it's a way for you to get out and actually make a difference.
Me just getting into my classes for my actual major, I actually just got the opportunity to Dr. Thur's lab class of the marine biology of fishes to go out into the Gulf. And it was an amazing experience just to find to actually go out there and to just listen to him talk about the cypress forests and how they're disappearing and the land laws and how we need to rebuild our barrier islands. So mainly what I have been doing is make sure I educate myself outside of class or outside of lab and just understand what's really going on. And like Alyssa said earlier, just really bugging people about it. My parents are sick of hearing about it, and everybody else around me, I kind of find a way just to bring it up, just to educate people while also still educating myself. Because it is a really important thing, and we do need to fix it.
What I've done so far has been more in relation to the sphere of cultural restoration on the coast, I suppose. As you mentioned earlier, I'm the president of the Navy Association of American Indian College Students. And when I first got here, it wasn't actively an organization on campus. The people who used to be in the organization, they just all graduated around the same time and it became a movement. And so I picked it back up. I worked really hard to recruit. That was my goal. But we got it together, and mainly, the main reason why I did that is because with the coastal program, a lot of the focus growing up, a lot of the people around my age within the tribe I know didn't have a lot of the same access opportunities as I did to be involved in their cultures. And although I know a lot of people who were pretty devastated by that. So my main goal was to have an area on campus where we could come together with people if they wanted to learn openly do that and seek it. But so many people, they're just so intimidated because they feel already disconnected, which in itself is coming from the loss of the coast. So just trying to bridge that gap.
All right, next on the list, for Karas, how is research that you have done specifically as a biology student inspired you to be an advocate for coastal restoration? I know you kind of talked a little bit about it, but if you want to go more in depth, how did it change?
I'm gonna be honest with you, it's kind of hard for me to go in depth, like I said, with me just getting into my major classes, research-wise, but for inspiration-wise, it's kind of, I get my inspiration from my classmates, just me going to class with David, and people like Courtney and Kobe has just really shown me, like them displaying their passion, kind of helps me further my passion, just want to push myself harder to get more involved, help out, and just advocate and repost things, and just keep talking about it. That's where my inspiration comes from.
Yeah, I can definitely agree on that. I feel like having other classmates that are also involved can boost the whole process for everyone.
Because it, like, at the end of the day, like, it is a sad thing, but, and you kind of do put it on your own shoulders, but when you have everybody around you working together with the same passion, the same drive, it's a beautiful thing.
All right, so for Alyssa, as a mass communication student that's not in a field directly associated with coastal restoration, outside of sciences, how do you believe you're making a difference? Is it harder to find opportunities in college because of being outside of the sciences?
I think the really beautiful thing about mass communications and specifically, not even just public relations, but journalism, the whole is communicating. It's like it's our main thing. So being able to maybe not go as in depth in what is happening like Hayden and Cross, I am able to take what I learned on surface level and just get people to understand the general knowledge of it. This coastal summit for anyone is just general knowledge of what is happening and what you can do that's maybe not in depth, but little things. Don't recycling, planting a tree, like it's things like that. But learning about it and being able to promote it in a way like that. So I don't think it's not hard being out of the science and being a mass communications major doing this because it's still beneficial. Any aspect of coastal restoration, whether you're planting plants like you are, or me posting about it on social media, I'm still benefiting and I'm still helping people and I'm still helping Louisiana, even if it's not in maybe my hands one way.
To add on to that, Alyssa's job is like really important. I heard she just said she may not go as in depth, but she can point people into the direction of people who can go in depth and have those longer conversations and to show them where to sign up or how they get involved. So things like that is really important.
Yeah, and as mass communication, whether it's journalism or public relations, we're the ones who bridge the gap. So if the public might not understand scientifically what's going on, we have to figure out how we can expose it to people where it makes sense for a wide audience.
Yeah, like just like this, just to quickly expand, like we had to figure out a way that was going to be beneficial for everyone here to learn about this. And you've heard from so many different aspects. You've heard from coastal leaders, you've heard from people who work in it, now you hear from students who are just like you, and it really helps that if we can do it. I mean, I graduated, I keep pointing to y'all because I graduated from South, but like I graduated 4 years ago. Like it's not that long, and I'm doing things actively now. And you can start now. I wish I would have known about what I could do when I was in high school, I would have started earlier. So like, it's like you said, bridging that gap of you can do this, you can either do what I do, you can do what Karaz is doing, what Hayden's doing, like whatever everyone is doing. So like it's all important. Every aspect of what coastal restoration is, who's involved, what we're doing. All these companies like CPRA, MRD, BitNet, they have people like me promoting what they do. So, yeah.
Yeah, even though it's a science-based organization, it mean they don't have communication representatives to display all the signs that they're providing. All right, next one for all of you, okay? How can students, whether in high school or in college, be a part of the fight against coastal land loss?
I think personally, a big part of fighting against coastal land loss is being a part of your community. There are a lot of great people out here doing great things. And to just even ask the question of, can I help you, is a big step in the right direction. Like I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of volunteer opportunities with the coastal cleanups and even with the plantings. Last summer, we did have a big volunteer group come out and help us plant, and we were extremely grateful for their help. So if you were even interested in starting and getting hands-on with coastal restoration, a big part of it is community.
Another thing is, even if you don't make your schedule on that line up with the volunteer days and stuff like that, maybe just look at a group of friends and just maybe go clean up near the coast. I know when I live in Tallahassee, I'll get a group of friends and drive to the beach and just clean up whatever trash you've seen. Or maybe you're out fishing by yourself and you see something that's plastic bottle out there, just clean it up. Anything really helps. Like Alyssa pointed out earlier, just reposting, just to keep educating yourself on even just not just the human displacement due to hurricanes and other things like that, but also the organisms that live there that we see, like the fisheries and stuff like that. But that also helps.
I would say definitely keep promoting your story, your own stories involving your experiences with the coast and uplifting the stories of communities who have been incredibly impacted by the degradation of the coast and cities. Just highlighting the real human experiences that come with the loss of the land.
I think being educated about what is happening is probably one of the biggest things, because you know about coastal erosion forever, but you probably didn't know that people are being displaced. There's indigenous tribes that are no longer in their home, like what I just said. It's just constantly being educated and seeing what you can do, cleaning up. If you're fishing with your grandpa or by yourself, I know some of you all do that. Like they said, just pick trash up, do what you can. You may not be able to pick up sun and put it somewhere, but you can follow it.
Everything matters.
Everything matters.
So for those of you who don't know, Nichols has recently rebranded itself as the university that's closest to the coast. I believe that's in our strategic plan. So how do you all believe we can make the university more environmentally aware and proactive? How can we keep that branding that we are close to the coast?
I think it really helps that we are building that coastal center. I know I'm really excited for it. We have Keep Nichols Beautiful, and we have like things like that are doing things to be involved with just being aware, I guess, of what's happening and what you can do to make sure that our land and our state is beautiful and clean. But the coastal center is like a big step of, we are closest to the coast. We need a place where people can go and learn and network and see what they can do about coastal erosion. Because we can sit up here all day and harp and tell you that in 50 years, if we don't do anything, Louisiana is going to be gone. Like we can say that all day, but having some like a hub of things is really important. So you can leave today and still have something that is teaching you and constantly keeping you updated. So I think that's a super big step forward in going with that.
I'll have something quick. I just think we should just keep supporting events like this. So hopefully one day we get all the chairs filled up and maybe some more chairs in here. Just to keep supporting big events like this to educate people and to learn and just meet welcoming people like everybody up here and everybody who's spoken today, and not be afraid to ask those questions or what that big word might actually mean. It's just things like these are important to keep having and to get more people here.
I would like to add, I think that we should be pushing graduate research a little bit more. A lot of our graduate students who are pursuing their master's degrees are really doing some really cool research. We have a lot of people doing research on garfish and crawfish, and those are key species to our coast. So I think by putting the word out that we're doing actual research for coastal restoration would be helpful in bringing more people in.
There's much to be learned about the coast from the indigenous populations, and to be the university that's establishing itself closest to the coast, I think it's important to also continue to foster and establish close relationships with the indigenous people on the coast as well, and involving their perspective on how to move forward and protect them, take care of it.
All right, so for Hayden, you're already literally getting your hands dirty as a student worker at the Nichols Farm. You kind of harped on that a little bit, but tell us about what you do there and talk about how other students can potentially get involved.
So, yes, I do get my hands dirty, probably the majority of the days during the week. And I enjoy it. It's kind of like a healing process for me. It's good to be able to get grounded and be outside all day. But at the farm, I mentioned earlier, we do plant native Louisiana species. They're both beneficial for coastal restoration and for habitat for the various animals and birds that we have here. So, during a typical day, it could be anything between actually planting seeds or, picking weeds out of the cones. And it's a very versatile job. But when it comes down to actually getting hands-on in the field, I mentioned earlier, we do plantings where we take volunteers. That's a great way to get out and help fight coastal restoration, or coastal erosion, rather. We also do have an event that we host on the first Friday of every month. It's called Farm Friday. And we take volunteers where they can come and help us at the farm. So if you're interested in getting your hands dirty, you can come help us, do any of the variable tasks that we do have that need to be completed.
I highly recommend it. It's very fun, very peaceful, and Ashley might make you try a very nasty plan, but it's a very fun. It's actually really peaceful. Like, I'm kind of jealous they get to do that. Okay. But you also learn so much there. Like, I didn't know half the plants there, and somehow I now can see them and spot them. So that's really cool. And actually, it's really cool, which I know y'all know because I just.
All right, so Coda, you are passionate about preserving the culture as it relates to our indigenous communities. Tell us about your experiences and share why you feel it is important for the younger generations in the community to get involved in coastal restoration.
As I mentioned earlier, being Native, I'm painfully aware of the erosion of the coast. I grew up hearing so many stories of just how much more land was there prior to whatever year, and just constantly hearing about, how much more fish were in the waters, how much more shrimp they were able to catch, how much more lively the woods were. And it's a hard thing for me to even conceptualize, because it was before my time. But I remember growing up and playing in those woods and thinking, wow, there's so much life here. This is so encompassing. There's nothing but greenery. I can barely see any weeds, and it feels like the most magical place in the world, even with having lost so much of the land. I can't even conceptualize now with that, the idea of that all being gone. And then culturally, like, how to raise kids in a world with my culture, how do you pass a culture down that was so rooted in the land when the land is gone? And I know, like, I've pretty much been saying the same thing each time I come on here, but there's nothing more true than that. Like, I'm so passionate because the more Louisiana is lost, it feels like the more a part of my entire identity is lost too. And I don't want future generations of indigenous kids to feel like they're fighting a losing battle. I want them to feel like they're fighting a winning battle and there's hope to restore. You know? So.
I know you say you keep saying it over and over, but it packs a punch. We need it. You know? We need to understand, why it's so important.
I don't know more, I'm sorry. Culturally, I think that like, I didn't touch much on the whole cultural restoration portion of it, but I think it's so important that Native people, that it's restoring indigenous culture and bringing awareness, representation of the Native culture down here, and just bringing more youth to involve in that, because I think in itself, when you start using these materials, it connects you to the land in a way that's just different, just living on it. You start living with it. And I think that's something that everyone, not just Native people, can really learn from. And that's something that we should risk. One cultural restoration work. So, here talk about this.
You saying that not living on it, but living with it is so true, because I had to do a project a while back, and I had to call my grandma and my grandpa, and they're set in their 70s and 80s, and she was telling me how like they used to like make their own medicine with their plants. Like they didn't have, if you had a sore, like you had a headache, you didn't take ibuprofen. They made it themselves. Kind of weird, but it's just true. Like everything is lost. Like even like the indigenous culture as well as the Asian culture and heritage is slowly losing itself. I mean, I don't know if that's because I've been in Tiverton the past 4 years, but I haven't. When I go home, it's not the same. No, nothing is really the same. So it's interconnected like that. I mean, all culture is just slowly dwindling away with the coast. So.
Yeah, I will just going off some more on that. I feel like I lost my train of thought.
To give them a little break. What you said, you mentioned earlier about getting the youth involved, get them involved early. I think that's really important, just because of the fact that a lot of things we're doing are sometimes we might not be able to see the results, or even the next generation might not be able to see the results. But just getting people involved early, there might be a small chance you do get to see those long-term effects, whether you are indigenous or whether you are, it doesn't matter at the end of the day, but it's just getting the youth involved and young people involved, just allow them to see what it looks like, and then turn into what it can be.
Okay, I regained my train of thought. I think one thing I really like what you were saying, like so much is being lost. I think it's important to highlight though that it's not all gone yet, not yet. And if you start prioritizing incorporating it, prevent any further loss of any more culture. If we just continue to have these conversations right now, and then we can start working towards restoring things that we know from the past that we lost, just practicing of, which would in turn restore our relationships with the coast. We can start feeling like a part of it again. More people are going to care more deeply if they're able to connect to it in that same way.
Definitely getting the youth involved. Like my sister, when I was younger, I always liked to go fishing and shrimping and crabbing with my grandpa. And as he got older, we kind of stopped. But I was so happy, like before even all of this, that my sister started going with my grandpa again, and like even my grandparents started to be more involved with the coast, like living with it, not on it, all the same. So it's really, I think, as of lately we're getting back to where we were, not to bring up the whole thing that happened 5 years ago, but I think the world shutting down kind of caused a lot of that for a second. But I think opening up again and living again is helping with that. But like I said, it's not all gone, and it will never not be here. But if we don't do something and keep learning and keep growing and keep trying, it could be all gone eventually.
So we've been talking about what we can do for the university. We've been talking about for our communities, everything like that. But let's take it on a bigger scale, globally. What can be done globally for Louisiana to get attention on the extreme environmental threats we face? Because we have this unique opportunity as students, you know. We have social media, we know kind of how to use it. Well, we should, you know. But how can we, as college-age students, bring this up all over the world, make it a bigger issue for people to realize?
Well, I don't know how much, I guess, they've talked about where we got this name from, Louisiana's Restoration Generation. I see this picture, okay? So basically, the idea behind it was that we are Louisiana's Restoration Generation, but we want it to be bigger than that. So like I said earlier, I get to go to Europe and with another one of my classmates and talk about this, what we're doing actively here. So the idea behind it was that we're going to Newcastle, and it's going to be Newcastle's Restoration Generation, because we talk about Louisiana, but this coastal erosion and flood, sea level rise, and all of these different things that is not just happening here. And I've learned that in recent times. If you go to the room back there, we have a thing where you can see like all the different things that are happening. It's happening in New Zealand, in Australia, in Russia. It's happening Spain. And it's not just coastal stuff. It's everything that goes with it: deforestation, extreme weather events, all of these things. So the idea behind it is to put it as wherever you live, Restoration Generation. So like Florida's Restoration Generation, Newcastle's Restoration Generation, New Zealand's Restoration Generation. So it's this idea that it's bigger. So globally, it's not just talking about it here, we're talking about it on a bigger scale, that there are so many different places that are experiencing some of the same things that are happening here. And on my side as a communications person, talking about it and presenting things that are happening here, this is what, like, we're going to Newcastle, we're saying, this is what is happening here, this is what we're doing, let's see what you can do, kind of thing. So, on my perspective, on my side, of the communication side, we're just trying to get it a global conversation of, it's not just happening in one place, it's happening everywhere.
I think that was a fantastic answer. Really kind of encompassed the whole question. But personally, I think that in order to bring about a global recognition of coastal restoration, not specifically just in Louisiana, but literally anywhere, we can look at places like Denmark, who have done literal land reclamation from the sea. I think that it's a fascinating way to reclaim your coast, but also a sign that it can be done. We are in the day and age where we are literally seeing the effects of climate change happen in front of our eyes. We have literal entire towns being taken by wildfires, and there are crazy hurricanes going all the way up the Appalachians and just devastating entire communities. And I think by showing that actual work can be done to save the things that we want to protect, can go a long way. And, you know, by uniting everyone who has gone through some kind of event where they are affected, whether it be hurricanes or wildfires, you know, sea level rise, I think it's very empowering as a human to see that we can be resilient, you know.
Like you said, the hurricane's going up. I know we all love the snow, but that was not normal. That is That's a perfect example of what's happening. Snow is great, shouldn't happen, not here.
Once again, like Katie said, two great answers. I don't really have much to add to it, but more so just showing people like how vital we are to the United States as a whole, because many people may not know that Louisiana does serve as a buffer to hurricanes and natural disasters, even if you may not care so much about fish or anything to do with marine biology, just to show that you still do need to get involved, because we serve as a shield to protect the more central states or the rest of the United States from these hurricanes and natural disasters. So I think things are important, like documentation and documentaries, because that's almost how I got involved with and really got inspired to do marine biology, just watching the stuff on Netflix, like Our Oceans, and just listen to David Attenborough's voice about the species of fish. I just think things like that are important to just keep promoting them. Like, you need to watch these things, you need to learn, you need to understand that our coast is necessary and it doesn't need to be rebuilt, and that it is possible, like Hayden said, with what's going on in Denmark. What the work they're doing and we are trying to do is not trivial. Like, we are actually trying to get this done.
Yeah, and like they all three said, get educated, educate others, make sure you know what is happening and what can be done, and just sharing that and getting it out, and sharing our story down here, bringing it to the world's table. It's just getting the story out there, documenting it and sharing it, and being capable of being vulnerable with, stuff like the loss of your house. So,
Because everyone is capable of doing something, whether it's attending this is doing something, this is contributing. Because you can take this knowledge back to school. You can take this knowledge to your family, your friends. You can do it. Like, it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be putting a coastal summit on. It doesn't have to be sitting up here. You can literally do anything, and every little thing matters. So I think it's really important to highlight that. You don't have to do these big grand things. It's the smallest steps of going to tell your friends and family what you learned today. Simple as that.
So sorry, I just wanted to add how, like, highlight, like I said, they're going to Europe. Just to highlight how important that is, because we get to go share what's going on down here while see what's going on there, and just sharing of ideas that they might be able to help us, we might be able to help them, and that's all due to us promoting and really just like Dakota said earlier, just being vulnerable.
And just going off of everything you said, on a global aspect, if we lose parts of Louisiana, like the southern coast, we're threatening the world from not having our music, our culture, our Canadian French, language, like all of that is unique to us. So if we lose that here, then the rest of the world will never be able to really indulge in everything we have.
Not scary, all right.
Yeah. All right, so that concludes all of our questions. Do we have any questions from the audience?
So you talked about land loss, which has been very real in my lifetime, very dramatic. But we've now hit the point where it's become population loss. Our region is losing population at a pretty alarming rate. How important, or how do you as students convince your peers the importance of staying here and fighting rather than leaving and going somewhere else?
Yeah, that's really good. I know, I'm kidding. Just after Ida, like I said, like my mom and dad were in their house for like a year, my grandma still isn't. But a lot of people down the bayou didn't come back. They said there's no point, their house is ruined, why stay here if it's just gonna keep happening? But I think with that, and how you're saying, like, how do we convince people to stay here, it's leaving doesn't change the problem. People say that be here to, leaving's not gonna stop the hurricanes, they're still gonna come, but if there's no one here to actively help and restore and teach people what's happening and learn about it and do it, it's still gonna keep happening, but it's gonna go away faster. The land's gonna get lost in 50 years. Kind of simple as that. Just because people are leaving doesn't mean the land's not gonna keep, just because they're leaving doesn't mean hurricane stop. They're still gonna go.
I've heard stories of people who have moved elsewhere and they completely get homesick, within months, and they want to come back. So I think that being so close to your roots and being close to your heritage will certainly root you in the right place. I have a relative who lives in, I believe it's Ohio, somewhere around there. And every time that they come back down here, they love it. They are constantly missing being in Louisiana. And I think that once people realize that they're leaving what they really love, then they're going to want to actually come back. And, if they don't do something to preserve what they love, then they're going to lose it forever.
I think one thing we can do to but convince them to stay is just appreciate them, just to let them know, the fact that their family has been there for generations, or the fact that, they're just taking care of the land, maybe just around their houses, that how important that is and how it really does affect and adds to the solution of our land loss problem. So we can just convince them that and show them what you're doing down there, even though this is your way of life and your culture, it's important and essential to what we're trying to do. So I think that's
That question is definitely a hard one. I'm the youngest of 10, and only me and my sister still live in Louisiana. 8 out of the siblings have left, mostly due to the fact that, before my siblings, every generation before us, they relied on shrimping. And due to the oil field, you can't shrimp and be all that profitable anymore, not like you used to. And, they left mostly for financial reasons, mostly because it was just how do you support yourself financially now and continue to pay to rebuild your house over and over and over again? How do you afford that? Which seems insane and impossible. I think the only real answer to, how to prevent people from leaving is emphasis on community. If you have your community here, your community becomes an extension of your family, and you want to stay and you want to fight for them.
I think we have to show, culturally, what's so special about Louisiana to get people to want to stay. I can't imagine not having Mardi Gras. I can't imagine not going to a lot of these festivals, like the King Cake Festival in Tidwell. These are all small little things that are just keep adding up to why we're so unique. And I think that's what we need to start reminding people, is how unique this area really is. And that might persuade, might not, but this is hard. Any other questions?
Question. Do you have any advice for people who are more stubborn? We're oh, that's not my problem. I don't care. To get them to care.
Make it their problem. Find something connected to them that bothers them on a personal level and explain how they're connected. People just have to see this all impacts every single person who lives here in Louisiana. There's not a single person here who doesn't have a family member who's impacted by the oil field or the shrimp industry. And that alone ties into all of this. So it's find a way that all of this is connected and how it would negatively impact them. Because there is some way that the coastal code does negatively impact everybody here. And targeting that, explain it there. Try to bring them.
Yes, stubbornness goes with not being educated about it. And keep saying educate, but like you said, there's some tie. You're somehow affected by it, whether you live in Baton Rouge or whether you live in Monroe, Louisiana. When the rose disappears, what's next? Thibodeau. When Thibodeau disappears, what's next? Baton Rouge. It's gonna keep going and it's gonna keep getting lost. I don't know if y'all have ever seen the map that's on the MRD website of what's gonna happen in 50 years if nothing happens. You think Louisiana is disappearing? Go look at that map. In 50 years, if we do nothing, there's going to be nothing. Like, you're gonna be going to school books. I know we joke about it down there, but it's true. Y'all gonna, no, here, school's not gonna be there, actually. So somehow it's all connected, and I think being educated about it is what's gonna help them, because whether they want to continue to be stubborn or not, they can continue to be stubborn in water, I guess, is the best answer to say. You can be stubborn living in your boat, is the sassy answer. All right.
Yes, I've had those conversations with some people, and like these guys said, these things are full circle, and it's not just our problems, everybody's problem. So one of the main subjects I did is eat with meat and allergic to shellfish. Do you like crawfish? Do you like shrimp? Do you like crab? If you do, then it's your problem, because we will eventually run out of crawfish, shrimp, and crabs down here, like because of things like the oil spill and our grasslands, the wetland nurseries, where these crawfish and crustaceans live and grow up and will disappear. So if you do like those things, I would start getting involved.
My take on the whole "it's not my problem" thing is, if it's not your problem and you go somewhere else, there's gonna be another problem waiting for you. So you need to pick your battles, because you can go up north, you can deal with the blizzard conditions, or you can stay down here, you can help, fight to protect where you've grown up your entire life. So.
My mom used to tell me that all the time. I used to complain. I was like, well, why do we have to stay here if there's a hurricane? She goes, well, do you want a tornado? I said, no. She goes, do you want snow? I said, not really. You want an earthquake? Like, everywhere you go, there's a problem. And it all comes back to the one big thing is climate change.
Any other questions?
So before we dismiss, I just want a round of applause for these 5 incredible students. You know, it really makes me kind of emotional because I've been teaching at Nichols for 24 years now, and it's consistently difficult to engage college students sometimes because they're so busy. They've got, still got this limited view of the world. But I mean, gosh, this is evidence that we have got some of the best and the brightest college students around. And the passion that we see in these guys is not unique to just the 5 students that we have sitting up here. I mean, we were hoping to have 100 people come through the doors today. We are pretty sure, we don't have final numbers yet, but that we've had over 300 people come in and out of this building today. The large majority of those were college students. Now it's almost 3 o'clock on Wednesday, and to get college students to be in here at 3 o'clock on Wednesday is pretty difficult. But I'm beyond proud of the work that these students are doing. This is indicative of a much larger student body that is doing amazing, amazing things. And the 10 students in my senior level PR campaigns class that put today on is proof of that those 10 students walked in the first day of class, and I said, no, guess what? In 8 weeks, we're having a major event on campus. Just buckle up. And I mean,
And the room went silent.
it did pretty much. And they have embraced my own brand of insanity over the last 8 weeks, and I'm very proud of them for it. But these students, I don't know how excited you were when you got my emails. I know one of them, well, one was forced, two forced, a third avoided me for a little while. Yeah, and then he was forced. But truthfully, you guys, I'm very proud of you, and if any of my other Mass Comm students are in here, I know they're like picking up and then setting up for another event that we have from 3 to 6. So they are very busy, but any of you guys who are in here, I just want you to know how amazingly proud I am of you and the work that you're doing. They're waving at me from the back. Here, there, and everywhere. So thank you all for being here. Thank you especially to our friends at South Lafourche. I am so excited that you guys were here and hope that I see some of you. I'm gonna have to take that away from you for long. I hope that I see many of you on campus in the future. And to Restore the Mississippi River Delta, Emily, still back there. Without you answering the phone when I call, this would not have happened. So, this would not have happened without their very, very generous support. 24 or 25 coastal partners here today, 12 or 14 research posters. All the opportunities that we have here for our students is just incredible. And today was wonderful. Thanks to all of our speakers and all of you who attended for all a part of the day today. So now go and be coastal champions. And if you're a Nichols student, join us across by the library for the Save On celebration.